I'll lasso the moon for you. I'll start my own loan company.
And I'll start it. Took over his dad's business.
Yeah, that's true.
Come on now.
Dude, all right.
Come on,
I'm
John
sorry.
Wayne.
I'm sorry.
John Wayne, did you watch the movie? We in. Merry Christmas.
Well, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Is that your Santa voice?
Huh? No, that's my Jimmy Stewart.
Okay. Cool.
Hello there. Hot off the presser.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Merry Christmas. Welcome to the Chris and Kyle Show. Special Christmas spoiler episode.
Let's over just a little bit here.
No one can even hear you.
All right.
Okay. A special Christmas spoiler episode for
It's a Wonderful Life.
We didn't even practice that.
No, I didn't.
Wow, that was awesome.
Can I do the entire episode with Jimmy Stewart voice?
Nope. I will not stand for it.
All right, cool.
So for those of you who don't know what It's a Wonderful Life is,
Yeah.
it's very old. It's made in 1946. You want to know what it's about? An angel is sent from heaven to help a desperately frustrated businessman by showing him what life would have been like if he had never existed. You know what I have to say about that synopsis?
What?
That's about 1/10 of the movie.
Yeah.
Like the whole angel bit is like almost none of the movie.
I mean,
It's like
I
a
wouldn't
frame
say
narrative.
almost
It's like a
none.
frame narrative
it is. Like that's
for
how,
the actual movie.
that's how the movie is bookended.
Yeah.
I would say, and it probably
and the
takes
weird
up
beginning
maybe
thing with space.
I would say it's a majority of the third act, though.
Maybe.
Give me some more. Give me some more information about it.
Okay, so it's
a
directed
Wonderful
by
Life.
Frank Capra, which let's see what IMDb tells me about him. I don't know anything about old movies, so
Right.
all these names are just people I don't know.
So Frank Capra is a very well
I
esteemed
know the
director.
It happened one night.
It happened one night. Mr.
Mr.
Deeds
Smith goes to Washington.
Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Mr.
Deeds
Deeds.
goes to town.
Yes.
He likes making movies with people's names in them.
And them going somewhere. You know?
Yeah. That's fun. Several writers on it, including Frank Capra. We're not going to name all 6 of them. I would say important cast members include the wonderful James Stewart. He's fantastic.
He's wonderful.
He is.
He's great.
He plays the main character, George Bailey. He's great. And then Donna Reed plays his love interest, Mary Hatch.
What's going on here?
You're just gonna,
Dude, I fucking love.
You're gonna
I
stick
love
with that.
impression. The entire time I was watching because I've never seen this movie before.
Yeah, neither of us have.
What? Yeah. Well, so what have you heard about this movie? Have you-
I knew the moon scene, the lasso around the moon scene. That's super famous.
It's actually referenced in Bruce Almighty. For those of you that haven't actually seen this movie, it's pretty beloved. When people, even of our generation, that bring up old movies, if I talk to them about old movies,
or Christmas movies.
Exactly. They'll bring up this movie as one of their favorites.
Yeah.
So this is like very beloved, even amongst our generation. I don't know where I was about to go with that.
I don't either. You said something about
Bruce Almighty. Yeah. So the lasso the moon scene,
Yeah.
like Bruce is actually watching It's a Wonderful Life, and then the part where Jimmy Stewart's like, "Well, what do you want, Mary? You want the moon? Well, I'll lasso it for you."
Yeah.
And fucking that turned into like more of a John Wayne at the end there. Anyways. Well, saddle up, little doggy. I'll lasso the moon for you. I'll start my own loan company. And I'll
start it. Took over his dad's business.
yeah, that's true.
Come on now.
Dude, all right.
Come on,
I'm
John
sorry.
Wayne.
I'm sorry.
John Wayne, did you watch the movie? Yeah, I knew that. I think I've seen the end of this movie before. I'm almost positive I've seen the angel part. I'm almost I'm not 100% positive, but I think I have.
Okay.
But other than that, I didn't really know.
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. I mean, I've just tertiarily heard about this thing from other people. I mean, it's one of the best films of all time, even considered by AFI, IMDb. It's like number 24 on the top 250 films list.
Yeah.
It is, according to the American Film Institute, AFI, considered the number 1 most inspirational movie of all time. Do you want to talk about that? Let's talk about it.
So it's weird because like you say that, and I really enjoyed the movie. And I don't usually like older movies. I have a weird wall in my brain with old movies where I don't like the way people talk and I don't like the way they sound, and I just don't mesh with them very well. But I really enjoyed this. This was
and it is
very, very charming
and it
fun
is
movie to watch.
Yeah, it is super.
It's really long though. Did you notice that? It's like over 2 hours
I
long.
feel like it. Yeah.
It's because they make a whole movie and then bookend it with a whole short film. Essentially, they make a whole movie about this dude's life, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, there's weird galaxy god talking to Star Angel, and then there's the end with the angel coming down."
I feel like the reason that it feels so long because it's 2 hours and 5 minutes, which it's not that long. I mean,
compared to a lot of things,
but
it's
it
not.
feels long.
Yeah.
I think because of the narrative. I think.
Oh my god,
my Santa hat fell off.
Wait,
I was trying to wear it like a hottie.
Chris?
Yeah, dude.
Where'd Santa go?
It was me this entire time.
Oh my god.
You didn't know that Santa can do a really good Jimmy Stewart impression?
No, I didn't know that.
I shouldn't say that my own impressions are really good. That's kind of douchey.
Oh, you're not even gonna put it back on?
No. Now I'm just. Are you gonna double up, dude?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. So. Not It Happened in One Night. It's a Wonderful Life. There we go. The syllables kind of line up there. But yeah, It's a Wonderful Life. People love this movie, and I don't want to like really talk shit about that. I mean, it's a good movie.
No, it's really good,
and it's like really endearing.
Yeah. It's very charming.
But
inspirational.
I
The
was
most
kind of-
inspirational movie ever.
But I was kind of like. I feel like I had this movie built up too much.
Okay.
By other people, I went into
Dark
it
Knight Rises.
even in like they reference it in Friends. I think Phoebe tries to watch It's a Wonderful Life and she stops watching it because she says it's too sad. She's like, everything fucking goes wrong with this guy's life. And then
I love when Phoebe cusses in Friends.
and they're like, Phoebe, you have to finish watching the movie. Like, it resolves itself. It ends up being wonderful and a Merry Christmas at the end.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, okay, I guess I gotta go finish watching the movie.
Well, who
It's
thought that you
ridiculous.
should finish a movie?
It's ridiculous. But like I went into it thinking like, oh man, it's gonna be so sad.
No, it's not.
It's not that sad,
No.
right? But here's the thing. I think that we're kind of we're outliers, you and me. I think that we're kind of weird when it comes to evaluating how sad a movie is.
Okay.
Because I think that
I cried a lot of movies.
But just because you cry to movies doesn't mean that
It's because you feel emotions, not because you're necessarily sad.
here's the thing. I think that we're more accepting and more lenient with how depressing a movie can be.
Okay, that's true. Yeah.
There's a pattern for that.
Yeah, like we'll go see much sadder movies and accept their sadness as quality and not like we talked about it on the Star is Born episode, how somebody can literally think a movie is bad because it's sad, and that's nonsense to us.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't like Manchester by the Sea because of that. A lot of people don't like 50-50 because of that. And a lot of people didn't like Inside Llewyn Davis because of that. And those three movies, all three of those movies, like
I love all three of those movies.
yeah. So when I went into this, like I thought it was going to be a lot more sad than it was.
It's not really that sad.
And it's not.
I guess it makes sense though when you put it in that context because it's a Christmas movie.
Mm-hmm.
Barely. We can talk about that too. It's barely a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
But like it's a Christmas movie, so people watch it in the holidays and they want to feel cheerful and happy and merry.
I think,
but
if
it gives you a little bit of the sadness, a little bit.
I think
so people aren't expecting it.
I mean, it probably has a little bit. It has a touch more Christmas than Die Hard. But like a lot of people are like, obviously Die Hard's not a Christmas movie. It takes place during Christmas.
Yeah, there's a difference.
It's a Wonderful Life a Christmas movie? It takes place during
culturally,
Christmas?
yeah. Well, the end takes place during Christmas, but culturally, yeah, it's a Christmas movie. Culturally, I think
it's culturally it's accepted as a Christmas movie.
So the discussion of is X a Christmas movie or not is dumb. It's dumb. It's a dumb conversation.
Whoa.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Like the argument of is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
That's what we do here. Did you not know that?
We be dumb?
We have really fucking dumb conversations.
That's true. But like is Die Hard a Christmas movie? It doesn't matter. Like who if Christmas comes around and it makes you want to watch Die Hard, watch Die Hard. It's awesome. And it happens to be Christmas during Die Hard. Like that's cool. But like it doesn't mean anything what does it matter? You know what I mean?
Well,
I always get kind of like this thing when people Like, you ever see someone get really passionate about arguing about whether or not Die Hard's a Christmas movie? It's like, what? Why is this the hill you're dying on?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of arguments that you could say that about, dude.
True.
You know, like whether or not Rashawn Holmes is a power forward or a center.
We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. That's Rich Homie Sean, and we're not going to talk about his position.
All right, It's a Wonderful Life. Let's talk about
the actual movie.
Right.
I think the number one best thing about this movie is James Stewart. Mm-hmm. The dude is so charming. It's crazy.
I would say the girl as well.
Yeah, she's great.
The
too.
girl that plays Mary is fucking incredible.
Their repartee is really good. The moon scene is amazing.
I think that moon scene is probably my favorite part.
Yeah, that's the best scene in the movie.
It's so fucking
the whole
endearing.
walk down the street and the flirting and the, it's just very endearing.
So there is a problem, like
the bush scene. That's so funny.
There's a hitch that you kind of have to that any person, especially like millennials, younger people, are gonna have when watching older movies, right?
Yo, when he hits him as a kid in the beginning of the movie,
there's so many things that just like don't translate to our culture now, right?
Things have changed. Times have changed.
Yeah, times have changed. This is one of those movies that, like, you're kind of worried at first, but it handles it really well. Mm-hmm. Like I think that it sort of holds up. Like even though. Okay, this is probably the whitest movie ever made. Would you say that? Like, it's pretty damn white.
I'm trying to. So there's one. I can think of one non-white person.
There's one non-white, and at least speaking roles. I think there's 2 black people in the whole movie.
Okay, but there's Annie's the only one who spoke.
Mm-hmm. And she plays a maid.
So because this was made in the 40s, does the fact that there's an Italian family count?
I don't know. I don't know about that.
It counted back then, not anymore.
Yeah. But like, so it makes me uncomfortable when I see shit like that, when I'm like, oh, like the only person of color in this movie.
And she's like
is a maid.
Yeah, she's a maid.
Which
she's
is like,
funny, though.
It makes you uncomfortable.
She's funny.
The character is actually fucking really good.
Yeah, she's really good.
And like fucking really, like she doesn't take shit from the family.
No. And they clearly like respect and care about her. Like
it's
not like a weird like servant situation.
Yeah, but it's still like
it's just a little bit weird. Just a little.
It's weird.
It's just kind of weird.
There's like a lot of stuff as far as like the way that Jimmy Stewart interacts with Mary, you know, where you're like kind of like, oh, like is like how misogynist is this gonna get?
Well, it's weird just because like it's like casual violence was just kind of cool back then. You know what? Like in the beginning of the movie when the druggist, as they called him, what we refer to as a pharmacist, the druggist like starts hitting him and his ears start bleeding, and just like that's normal.
Yeah, it's normal.
And like the way that like even like Jimmy Stewart would like grab people and it's like no one would ever do stuff like that anymore. It's just a little over the line. But like back then it was normal. Yeah. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, saying all that, it still is like a really endearing movie.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't say I was like disappointed. That's too strong of a word. But like I was expecting a little bit more. Did
you think you were gonna go through more of an emotional roller coaster?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, or just expecting something more sad. Like I expected death to happen. And
because of how sad people say it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know that going into it, so I had no expectations for that. But I can see why you would have thought that.
But like if you put yourself in his situation, it is super sad. You know?
Oh
like
yeah, for sure. And there's the moment when the bank, he's basically Wilson Fisk of this town, Mr. Potter. When he says the line of dialogue when he says you're worth more dead than alive when he's talking about his insurance policy,
right?
That was like a really heavy moment.
And let's include people on that actually haven't seen the movie. What happens
to
Jimmy
Can't
Stewart?
Believe you people are watching this.
To George Bailey.
Wait, what happens to the character throughout the film? He basically never gets to follow his dreams and gets stuck living in a small town, living a life he didn't want to live because he falls in love with a girl who he loves very much, but isn't really living the life he dreamed of because his dad died and he had to take over his dad's business, and he hates the business, but he also helps a lot of people. So
which he does like that part.
He does like that part, yeah.
But it gets to a point like his rock bottom moment is when
his fucking uncle, his
dumbass uncle, fucking loses $8,000
because he was talking shit.
Dude,
talk shit. Get
to Mr. Potter.
poor. I don't know.
Mr. Potter just conveniently ended up with the money.
$8,000.
The $8,000.
Yo, I wonder
that
what
was
that's
keeping.
I want to know what $8,000 translates to in today's money. Like, how bad was that?
It's at least 14 million.
Wow.
Billion.
That's so much money.
Trillion.
That's crazy.
Pennies. Did I throw you off there? Did I throw you off? It's still a lot of.
That's still a lot of 14 trillion pennies is still a lot of money.
Yeah, but they lose $8,000, and then there's also like a bank inspector there to evaluate the George Bailey's business,
The legitimacy of it.
Yeah, the legitimacy of it, and all of these loans and stuff.
He gonna go to jail.
So fucking Mr. Potter, like knowing that he has fucking George Bailey's money, calls the authorities and the
He's
reporters.
super evil,
straight up evil.
He's like the most evil. Like, there's not a single redeeming thing about him. He's so evil.
Yeah. I will say this though. Okay, so there is a part in this movie, right, where George Bailey is on the end of his rope, right? He gets drunk. He gets in a fight at the bar, right? Then he goes to a bridge to kill himself.
Yeah.
So that he can cash in on this $15,000
so his family can have his life insurance
policy, right? And an angel shows up and jumps in the water. Clarence shows up at the bridge and then jumps into the water before George can do it. George jumps into the water to save this man, right, who ends up being his guardian angel. Yeah. And then George talks to the guardian angel about, how worthless he feels and how, he says, well, I'm worth more dead than I am alive. And fucking George is like, all right, well, do you think that if you committed suicide that everybody would be happy? And he was like, no, well, I guess you're right there, but maybe I should have. What?
You're just sticking with it. Talking like an old movie character, see?
That's not Jews. But anyway, so he says, I should have just never been born.
So they show him.
So this guardian angel is like, I got you, homie.
Well, first he's like, can we do that? Will that work?
Talking to the other angels and God and I guess whatever.
You mean the giant planet that God is?
That's kind of weird,
Can
right?
we talk about that too? Like, the beginning of this movie is literally a shot of the universe.
Yeah,
like,
it looks like something that would be in like Carl Sagan's Cosmos or something.
They literally zoom. They do like a pan zoom thing past like a clearly fake planet. Like they built a model planet.
Yeah.
And then they go past the planet, and then you just see figures in the distance, and one looks like, like the Milky Way kind of, and then one looks like a planet. And they just, as you hear the voices, they just light up so that they're talking.
Like if you've seen like the old school Universal title card that used to be on Universal's movies, like before like the one now where it's like the good fucking turning shot of the world and shit, but it was like the old one that came out in like the fucking 70s. It's worse than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a little strange, but it's like it's also kind of it's weird, but I like it.
It's fine. It's just weird. It's just like
it's strange.
All right, that's
like
cool.
It's one of the, I think that like they imagine like actual angels talking to each other, because they're literally just showing planets, and then there's dialogue of someone saying like, "Oh, what book are you reading?" They speak. Like what book are you holding there?
Yeah, I love it. It's kind of endearing how human the like heaven figures are. They're literally just like normal people. Like there's nothing different about them. It made me think of something. What was I? Oh. So you were talking about when Clarence the angel comes down and and he changes, he makes it so he sees what his life would be like if he was never born. They sit with that for a long time. It takes George forever to accept that it's real. Forever.
Yeah.
Do you think that we are desanitized to the extraordinary because of the types of movies that we can see today? Like back in 1946, that probably blew people's minds watching that happen on a screen, right? But do you think that we are desensitized to out of this world things happening? Like to us, it was like, I literally said it when we were watching. I was like, what's it going to take for this dude to believe this is real?
Yeah.
Because it's been going, like, he's met like 6 different people.
Yeah.
and seeing like the whole town is like, why is he having such a hard time just buying into this? And you know, looking at things through this prism.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of it is like the filmmakers actually being like, oh well, and this is also based on a previous work too.
Okay.
I forgot what it was called.
It's a Horrible Life.
It's a Horrible Life. Yeah. But I think that we are, I wouldn't say desensitized. I would say that we're conditioned. I would say that we're conditioned to accept speculative thinking, you know, and things that like don't
out of
really,
this world,
and the things that defy logic. And I don't think that's just a product of like Marvel movies and shit like that. I think that's just a product of movies in general.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just easier for us to do that because we're bombarded is not really a right word, but the environment
movies are just so good.
The environment of pop culture is in majority speculative.
Yeah, like technology's gotten so good too that it makes it like anything that's out of this world or sensational is so believable now.
Yeah. So like in today's terms, if you did remake It's a Wonderful Life, that 15 or 20 minutes or so where he's like trying to like
where he's not buying into it, where he's running around like a madman.
That probably would have been shorter, but like I also got the feeling while I was watching it of like seeing him going around and meeting all of these people. He didn't buy into it until literally like the end of that scene. So I was like, oh, okay, so like this. It's not like we're getting a like, oh, he has to buy into it scene and then the angel shows him his entire life, right? He literally isn't buying into it the entire time. And that's how he's viewing all of these people that he's affected and or ended up not affecting if he were not alive.
There's a great bit of acting in a shot I really liked when I forget what building he ran out of, but he runs towards the camera and he just looks wild. Like he's going crazy, and they do he looks like kind of at and past the camera, and he just had just a really great bit of acting, I think, from Jimmy Stewart. And I was like, oh, this dude is feeling it right now. What did you not like?
What did I not like about this movie?
Yeah.
Like I mean, I don't think that I loved the first and second act of this movie.
Yeah,
I was like,
I think the third act is the weakest part of the movie.
I was like, I get fucking every reason why people love this movie so much. I love the dialogue. I love
the
like
repartee of the really. It's him with it's not just him and his love. It's not him and Mary. It's literally him and everybody. He's just a really witty character. Very like he's quick and he's funny.
But this movie also does a really good job of making you realize why George Bailey's so important. You know, because like and it's over the top.
Okay, I was going to say, let me ask you this. Does the fact that we see how important George Bailey is throughout the film almost hurt the message of the film? The message of the idea of the film is that what's the thing he writes in the Tom Sawyer book at the end? Any man who has friends is not poor or something like that. That's horribly paraphrased.
Yeah, so any person who has friends cannot be considered a failure.
There you go. But and then like the message of every person is important because they affect every person around them and everything could change. But it feels like if they had taken this angel and brought him down to like the cab driver,
right,
or even like Uncle Billy, like other characters,
because this
person
he's literally the most
important person in whatever the town was called, something Falls. So do you feel like that kind of hurts the message of the movie?
I kind of agree, but I think that's like that's why the third act falls apart, right? The first and second act, the reason that they're so good is for that. It's the movie itself is sort of like living and dying on its own sword, you know, like you have George Bailey, who in the first and second act is like you're seeing all these people, how they react to him and why he's so special
and how much everyone loves him.
And like you get like a really good small town feeling from it. But the reason that the third act is kind of falls apart is because if you're someone who has gone through something like that, who has thought that idea that like, well, maybe everyone around me would have been better if I had just never been born. It's really easy for you to watch that and then see like everything happen with, the guardian angel and shit like that. And just be like, all right, well, fuck off. Like, because okay, this is what probably like my biggest con with everything that's wrong with the third act. It resolves itself like that
so fast,
right? And while I was sitting there watching it, I was like, is this like a Deus Ex Machina? And for those that don't know what a Deus Ex Machina is, right? It is a Latin term for a Greek idea with that things that would happen in Greek plays, in Greek tragedies, where you would have a character that's on the end of his rope, just like George Bailey, right? You would have someone who is literally cornered by their conflict, and if you don't know how to resolve it as a writer or whatever, you have a Deus Ex Machina.
Look at the skies, baby.
Which stands for God from the machine. And this God from the machine doesn't have to represent a literal God,
or machine.
But it's an idea of something that is external to the story itself that intervenes in order to save your main character and get him out of this hole, right? Now,
can you think of a good example
of a Deus Ex Machina?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Not in like contemporary shit. At least right now.
Not off the top of your head.
Not off the top of my head. But this movie, it's almost a Deus Ex Machina. Like, the reason that it's kind of earned is because George Bailey was such a good person throughout the entire film.
They also let us know what's happening before.
So this is how
we
they
ever meet George Bailey. We know that's going to happen.
This is how they resolve the conflict. So George Bailey sees what his life or what his life would have been like if he didn't actually exist, and all of the people that whose lives ended up ruined. He comes back from that and says like, oh, like I enjoy my life now. He was super depressed right before that, comes back into his life, and he's fucking Merry Christmas, running through the town, fucking
really
hugging
excited.
his family. Like, and there's literal like cops and reporters waiting at his house to arrest him, to take him to prison, right? And the entire time he's like hugging his family and like they're happy and shit. But his wife isn't there. His wife comes back later and is like, oh, him and or the wife and his uncle that lost the money originally, comes in with a fucking basket full of money.
Cash.
With a basket full of money that the entire community donated to George Bailey. When I saw that, I was kind of like, all right.
You didn't think that's what was gonna happen?
Well, I was just like, I didn't feel like it was earned, and like I don't
you
know
don't
if
think
it's
that he earned that throughout his whole life?
He did, but it's just to me, it felt like lazy writing.
Okay.
Just the fact that like someone literally comes in with a basket full of money, I was just like, okay, like it's earned, but I don't feel. I wish it was more earned. I wish something different happened there. It just didn't. It didn't resonate with me as much because it didn't feel real to me. It didn't feel authentic. But I don't know how much of that is just me being cynical.
Yeah, it's probably that.
It really is. So yeah, like literally, basket of money comes in. Fucking George Bailey,
he's good.
He's completely fine now.
Now, I'd also say I wouldn't say that he was like depressed. I think he was scared more than anything. Because even it's kind of weird. There's like a balancing act with the character of this life that he wanted to live. He wanted to go be an explorer and an architect. He had weird dreams,
right?
But he wanted to go to college, and then he wanted to build tall buildings and all this shit he wanted to do.
I think he was a lot of things. I think he was depressed. I think he was ashamed.
Well, it's interesting because he's presented as wanting this life, and then Mary comes along and he falls in love with Mary, and circumstances keep stopping him from chasing his dreams. His dad dying, his business almost being run out by Mr. Potter. Right, like it's like the Abed joke about when you turn the radio on and the thing you need to hear happens from Community.
Right.
It's like exactly when he's going to pursue his dreams, something horrible happens every time. And even though we're seeing those things happen to him,
but that's completely fine.
No, it's fine.
In,
it's fine.
A writing sense, because like coincidental conflict
Yeah.
is actually like,
But
good.
it's just kind of funny.
It's when like you the problem with the Abed thing and like
No,
turning on
yeah, I get it.
It like is like coincidental exposition or
Yeah.
things that get you out of a situation
Yeah.
are shitty. That's that's shitty. Right
Yeah.
now.
No, but like him basically not being able to live the life he thought he wanted to live when he was younger is presented as something that makes him sad, but it never seems like he never seems like he's unhappy with his life. You know what I mean? It's just different than what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Because he does love his family and he does love his wife and he does love the town and the people in it. And he does, I think, feel he comes across as being fulfilled by helping others. So I don't know if he was depressed, clinically speaking,
Right.
but he definitely was scared out of his mind in that moment when he thought he was, when they lost that money and he thought it was going to be the end of his ability to care for his family and the end of his business that he'd been holding up for 20 years or whatever. And he might be going to jail, all these things. I think he was just really scared in that moment and was on the verge of doing something regretful.
And I also like, I don't know how you felt about that scene, right? Like when he, finds out that his uncle lost the $8,000 and then he goes home and, like yells at his kids and his wife and stuff like that. I don't know how you felt about that scene, but the entire time while I'm watching it, I'm thinking like, oh, well, he's only doing this because of yada, 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 because he's so sad. He doesn't actually like really believe this stuff. He is like, he's
lashing out.
Yeah, he's lashing out. Exactly. Yeah. But it's not, to me, it's not handled well enough to where you feel like you're, as an audience member, like you're sitting in the cart of the wagon. You feel like you're the horse sort of drawing the wagon there. Like you're ahead of the movie itself. And
like what's coming, but they're
no. I'm not saying predicting what is going to happen in the plot. I'm saying that as an audience member, right? You always want to feel like you're in trusting hands, right? That's why like people respect really good auteur directors, right? Because they always feel like they can completely trust themselves and just give themselves over to the movie. But there's certain things that can sort of rob you of that suspension of disbelief and that the ability to lose yourself in a movie. And I felt like I was sort of jarred, like I'd sort of lost that. Like I was justifying what the movie was doing in order to enjoy the movie itself, which shouldn't in the best movies you shouldn't have to do.
Because you didn't think he should have been acting the way he was, or because
I wish that he wasn't acting the way that he was.
Yeah, it seemed a little bit weird. I think it was who he was doing it to that made it weird.
Yeah,
it was like the most important people to him. But I mean, that isn't a not realistic thing though.
I agree.
That's a real thing.
I agree.
It just doesn't really fit with the character that we've been sitting with for an hour and 45 minutes at that point. Hour and a half, hour 45 of being such a joyful person who's so loving to the people around him. He all of a sudden is like, when he's
but
backed into a corner, like you said, that he lashes out to those people.
But noticing the pros and cons within that scene, like even amidst of him lashing out, right? Like he goes to his sick daughter and has a really good moment with her.
With the rose petals and everything.
Yeah. So like there is good dichotomy. This is a good movie.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah. So yeah. This is. I
don't
feel
you
like
know
our spoiler episodes are us
don't
just
you know
like
what
nitpicking
we
good
don't you know
movies,
what we do on this show? We have dumb conversations. Callback.
So some interesting fucking trivia about this movie that I saw on. There's a few things. So apparently the dude that played Mr. Potter, the actor himself, invented the boom microphone.
Props.
Do you know what that is? You know what a boom is? That's fucking really cool. For those of you that don't know what a boom mic is, in filmmaking, like the person that you see with the fucking huge ass stick and the mic on the end of it, that's a boom mic, which is one of the most widely used pieces of audio equipment.
Is the person who holds a boom mic called a boomer?
Huh? I think they might call him boomer. I
just think it's a funny term.
Like, I think in real life, what they're credited as is like a key grip.
I think that's right. Yeah. But boomer is funny. What other trivia do you have? Or was it just that one?
No, there was that and something else. Okay, so this is a fucking kind of interesting. So this movie like flopped in the box office. It didn't make any money.
Okay, like Wizard of Oz.
Right. But something weird happened. This because of like a clerical error in the fucking copyright office.
Mm-hmm.
This movie lost its copyright, so that any radio station, news station, any fucking channel could literally.
So everyone started playing it.
So everyone started.
So that's
playing
how
it
everyone
during
saw it.
Christmas, and everyone started loving it.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically got a cult following that way.
Yo, it got nominated. It may have bombed in the box office, but it had 5 Oscar nominations.
Yeah.
Best Picture, Best Actor in a Leading Role, Best Director, Best Sound Recording, and Best Film Editing.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that this won Best Film Editing.
Mm.
There's like several scenes where there's like weird,
straight up cuts,
like cuts of the same scene,
and
it's like it's just another thing that shows how much movies have grown and changed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like back then, people probably didn't even like think about that really.
But I also like I get what you're saying there, but like that's also like common in older movies that like especially once the French New Wave hit, because that's something that Godard's did a lot.
Cuts of the same shot.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. It's
like
kind of
we're like literally like if you were watching us right now for
it would just cut to slightly different.
Like yeah.
It's kind of jarring, like from people that watch.
Not even a
today.
different angle.
No, it's
but
just
like the same angle, but like a few seconds ahead.
Yeah. They just clearly used a different take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, no, I think that covers it. I think that's it. I think people should come back on Thursday because the winner of our poll episode will be up.
Oh shit, dude! Who won the poll?
Aquaman.
Aquaman.
Oh
damn.
Dude, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and Tony Kornheiser's podcast, and Tony Kornheiser's an old man, and he had a movie reviewer on. First of all, I don't know her name, but I disagree with like everything she ever says. For one,
right.
She's clearly just like an old lady.
Oh, okay.
But he says Aquaman because he's old, and I was like, why are you saying Aquaman? What are you doing?
It's Tony Kornheiser. He's a weirdo.
Aquaman. Who says Aqua? Why? But yeah, we did Aquaman. It beat Bumblebee by 2 votes. It's a very tight race.
So, only 2 people voted, or
you're not supposed to tell them that. That's a secret. No, right. More than 2 people voted.
Let's wrap this shit up, dude.
I am wrapping it up. Yeah, come back on Thursday. Watch the Aquaman episode. Hit us up on the socials. Find the show, The Chris and Kyle Show, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all podcasting platforms. tcaks pod on Twitter. Hit us up, like, rate, share, review, all that fun stuff. Comments, anything like that. We welcome, accept, and enjoy. Hit Chris up at Chris Michael Stott on his website and on Instagram. Hit me up at Davinwell25 on Twitter and Instagram. And have a Merry Christmas. And Happy New Year. Is there going to be another episode before New Year?
Yeah.
Oh, the Aquaman episode. Aquaman. I'll tell you Happy New Year then. Have a great Christmas. Love you guys. We out.
We're out. Stay weird, everybody.
Ho, ho, ho.